It's time to tell the truth about the Lumix S9, at least from my perspective. Okay, I wasn't going to make this video because I did a live stream yesterday talking about a lot of it, but it was 3 hours long, and my comments and stuff are all over the place. So I wanted to condense it down into a video that is easily digestible. I want to say this first, okay? I'm not about to pull no punches in this video, okay? I have never seen in my YouTube career of a couple years so many people, viewers, and creators so butthurt over a camera and a trip. I just don't understand it, okay? And I'm gonna get to that in 1 second. In this video, I aim to do three things. First of all, talk about what I just talked about. Second of all, to discuss the controversy about this camera. And third of all, to actually tell you my honest thoughts and truths on this camera. And I'm gonna say the same thing I said in my initial video, which will be up there in the comments. The camera is not for everybody. I would not recommend everybody to buy it, but even with that, I still freaking love this camera. I want to talk about the camera space in general right now, because for some reason, this camera has garnered so much hate, so much controversy, more so than any other camera I've seen. I want to talk about the elephant in the room first. Lumix provided me with this camera. They flew me out to Japan. It was a great trip. Didn't have to pay for a freaking dime. They paid for the hotel, the food. They gave me the camera. Let me, basically keep it on a long-term loan. I'm under no requirements by Lumix to make anything. I don't have to make a freaking video. They don't get to review anything. They did not ask me to say something positive or negative. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be working with any brand that says, Terry, you cannot say anything negative about our product. X me out then. I want nothing to do with that. Also, Terry's opinion cannot be bought by anybody. I don't care how much money comes along. No brand can come along and say, hey, Terry, we want you to do a review, but we'll pay you to not say anything negative. No, I will back out that deal ASAP. I have great working relationships with every brand I work with. I let them know up front. I will always share my opinion, even if it has to deal with your competitors, but I will do it tastefully. I also want to say anytime I'm paid by a brand, I disclose it. Anytime I'm not paid by a brand, or if they give me the product for free, whatever you want to call it, I disclose it. I even disclosed that I was flown out to Japan and they paid for everything. I disclosed it. Whether you like that or not, I don't care, okay? Y'all get so mad over content creators going on these press trips, which whether we should be taking them or not is that's debatable. I'm open to that conversation, but I still choose to. This is my job, all right? I'm not about to sit here and be feeling bad about me going on a trip. No, I got to take an amazing trip to Japan to do what I love, and that's talk about cameras and review cameras. Now that I got that out the way, I want to also say this. Every other company does press trips for creators. This is modern day marketing, modern day press, whatever you want to call us. Whatever you want to call me, I don't care. Now, I have no problem when people go on these trips and they just tell you all about the product and they don't give you their opinions or anything like that. Fine. I have no problem when people go on these trips and they give you the goods and bads of whatever this product is. Fine. My only problem is when people go on these trips and they do a review and they don't tell you about the bad stuff. An overview is totally different. An overview is just them telling you about the product. A review is giving you opinions about your use case. I do not agree when creators take these trips, and whether you were paid or not, because at the end of the day, they still spent money to bring you there. I don't like it when they don't tell you the bad stuff if it's a review. Fortunately, Terry doesn't do that. Also, all of these brands do the same thing, and a lot of y'all don't have the same energy when Sony does it, or when Canon does it, or when Luminar does it, or any other company out there. It's only for some reason this particular trip that people are so mad and butthurt about, which I don't understand. Let's talk about now the Lumix S9. This camera is not for everybody. I'm gonna throw that out there right now, and I'm gonna talk about the things that I think are wrong with it first, the same way I did in the last video. And some type of way, y'all still came up with this narrative that I was only being paid to say certain negative things. Like, some of y'all need to get a life. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, it is not that deep. It is literally a freaking camera. Some of y'all are on here like attacking our character and saying all this crazy stuff about us over a camera, yo. Like, get a life, all right? I think the Lumix S9 is flawed, heavily flawed, but at the same time, I think it's amazing, okay? And for me, and I gotta say for me, because my use case is not the same as everybody else's, the positives outweigh the negatives. Now, the same camera that you might think is garbage is the best camera in the world to somebody else. So some of y'all have this idea that because you don't like the camera, that Terry's not supposed to like the camera, or anybody else is supposed to like the camera. And if they like it, they must be wrong and they must be a shield. Or do we just have differences of opinion? Okay. I love the camera for what it is. And the easiest way that I can draw a comparison is using a car. There's been times where I looked at a car on paper and said, oh, it's only got 300 horsepower. That's not enough horsepower for me. And X, Y, and Z, right? But when I go drive the car, something changes. I fall in love with the car, even though it only had 300 horsepower in front wheel drive. On paper, I hated it until I went to drive it. And when I drove it, yo, something just clicked. It was just special. So it's the same thing with the Lumix S9, yo. And I really wish that y'all could grasp this and understand it. Just because there's something wrong with it doesn't mean that I can't still like it, okay? There are people that have problems, like Terry, that have a whole lot of problems. Does that mean I shouldn't like myself, my children, like everybody has problems? Does that mean that by that same theory, you shouldn't like anybody? No, the Lumix S9 is something that you can't truly understand or appreciate until you use it. And I get it, you know, you watch the videos and all that stuff, and I'm not saying that our videos don't have influence, but I also am saying that sometimes y'all are quick to write off stuff that you've never touched before. You got to use this camera to understand why it's so special. Now let's talk about the bad stuff first. Frankly, I think $1,500 is too expensive for this camera, okay? It's a powerful camera, okay, but it's also very limited. And let me just say this, there are no other cameras out there at $1,500 that can provide you with what this offers. A full frame, 24 megapixel sensor that can shoot open gate 6K 30, that can shoot 3.8K 30 open gate, that gives you 24 megapixel stills, has all of Lumix's suite of, you know, amazing stabilization and, you know, anamorphic D-squeeze support and vector scopes and waveforms, and I mean, you name it. There's no other camera at the price point that could do all this with a full frame. On top of that, that gives you real-time LUT, which is by itself a feature worth buying this camera for. Now, with that being said, Lumix made a lot of questionable decisions about the Lumix S9. Why? Because they had to cut costs. My first problem is the S5 II is right in firing range of the Lumix S9. You can get the S5 II on sale sometimes for $17.99, or if you're willing to go used, you can get it even cheaper than that on eBay. And this is $14.99. So a $300 difference can get you a more complete camera. If this is going to be an only camera, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend you save $300 if it's going to be your only camera and save up for a Lumix S5 Mark II, because by and large, it is a much more complete camera. It's got dual card slides, it's got a built-in fan, it's got an EVF, it's got full-size HDMI, all of those things. But that is my first problem, is I think that the camera needs to be a little bit cheaper to kind of separate it from the S5 Mark II. The second thing is, for example, there is no hot shoot. It's a cold shoot. There's no EVF. There's no mechanical shutter. There's micro HDMI. There's no headphone monitoring jack, but you also have to step back and understand that Lumix, as well as every other camera company out there, they do market research and analysis before dropping the product. And Lumix found out that amongst the people that they are targeting with this camera, most of them could care less about a hot shoot. Now, we're camera snobs. Of course, we looking at it like, oh my God, I would never buy that. But the camera is actually not meant for us. It's actually meant for people who just want a fun camera to use, specifically for social networks. Okay, let's call it a spade. It's not a workhorse freaking camera, and I wish y'all would stop it. The way I look at this camera is it's a fun camera, okay? And I'm gonna get back to that at the end. I'll bring it around full circle. Those things are big deals for a lot of people, and I totally understand how some people could feel like the S9 is not worth the money because of the things that they took out. Those things are deal breakers for a lot of people. And if this was my only camera, it would be deal breakers for me. Thankfully, I have other cameras. So, and I know not everybody's use case is like this, but I have other cameras where the things that they took out the S9 are not a big deal because I have other cameras that can fill those gaps. So I get it, our use cases are different. But at the same time, I can understand why some people feel the way they feel at the things that they took out on the S9, because it's still $1,500. But at the same time, no other camera at the price point can do what it does. This camera, I'll just speak about my camera bag, where it fits in my camera bag. This is the perfect travel camera for me. Is the camera perfect? Absolutely not. Is it the perfect travel camera for Terry? Absolutely. Absolutely. You want to know why? Because I have a full frame sensor and a small body that I can change lenses on, that can shoot anamorphic, that has amazing stabilization, that gives me a super compact package and 39 customizable looks that I can change, modify, share, use, hot swap, download at any freaking time. And Terry understands that my set of needs are different from everybody else's. So I can understand both sides of the freaking coin. This is not, I repeat, a camera for everybody. And if it's not the camera for you, it's just not the camera for you. Stop freaking wasting time online. And Cam said this also, and I'm so glad that he said it. Some of y'all waste so much time online glorifying and sensationalizing specs when you never freaking used it. This camera does not have the best specs, but I will tell you this. I haven't had more fun with a camera in the last 5 years than I've had with the Lumix S9. Now that that's out the way, I'm going to tell you why, even with all those negative things that I just said about the camera, why I love it. I love this camera, and it's four main reasons. The size, which I talked about. The fact that this has built-in anamorphic support. Would I buy this camera for anamorphics? Absolutely not. But the fact that it's this small and it has it is major. For the real-time LUT, which is by and large the biggest feature about this camera, and the fact that all this other stuff is built into it, as I stated earlier in this video, in a package that's this freaking small. Those things alone, even considering the record limits, which, you know, I know why Lumix did it, probably to negate overheating, because if it overheated, people will complain about that. But even with those limitations, those perks outweigh the negatives for Terry. I understand they might not outweigh the negatives for you or the next person. For Terry, they outweigh the cons. And that is why I love this camera so much. Somebody made a comment in my live stream that every positive thing about this camera ends in a roadblock. And I agree with that. As an example, it can shoot 6K 30 open gate in 10-bit, but I can only record at 10 minutes at a time. Roadblock. This camera is meant for content creators and all that stuff who are gonna use digital microphones and stuff, but it's got a code she wanted. Roadblock. Like, I get it. There are roadblocks at every end of this camera, but even with that, what it's good at, it is really good at. And the things that it's really good at make it appealing to me and also a ton of other people. They not gonna be able to keep this freaking camera on the shelf. I promise you. As much hate as it's getting, as much negativity is being thrown around about it, they won't be able to keep them in stock. I guarantee you that. They will sell out of these things because you, camera snob, are not the target user for this camera. This camera is meant for people who want to have fun, who want to be able to express their creativity through a small camera, and for people that want a dope travel camera with a full frame at a lower cost and are okay with the trade-offs. That is who this camera is for. It's not for you, camera snob. It is a B camera, a C camera, a D camera for most people. This is not an A camera, in my opinion, for most. And I'm not saying that it couldn't be an A camera, because it could be. Any camera can be an A camera if you are willing to work around its negatives. We did it on a whole freaking film shoot that Cam directed. It worked out just fine. But for you camera snobs like us, absolutely it's not an A camera. But we are also, as I said before, not the target demographic. Most people creating content for TikTok, short form, etc., this camera is absolutely nuts for. And you people who are being snobs need to step back and realize that just because the camera ain't for you don't mean it's not the camera for somebody. This camera is for a whole lot of people. And I just think it's so trash how just because something isn't for you, that, and I'm not speaking on you in particular because I know it's not you, right? But that people will go on taking time out of their day to bash something that's not for them. Why waste the time? Why waste the time? I do not waste time talking about and doing things I don't want to do. So I think everybody's wrong about this camera in the sense that people are thinking that this camera is meant to be a professional workhorse camera, and it's just not. It's just meant to be a fun social camera that just happens to be, you know, highly powerful and very limited in a lot of other ways, but it's meant to be a fun social camera. And those things I think it excels at. This camera is so freaking fun to use. Like I said at the beginning, I haven't had so much fun using the camera in the last couple years. Anyways, I'm very curious to know what y'all think down in the comment section. Do not come in here talking stupid, saying dumb stuff, because I will either clap back or block you. One of those two will happen, and nobody will see your comment. Your comment will go deep into the abyss of other useless comments. I'm not against conversation. You can come and give your opinion, say you don't like it, X, Y, and Z. The moment you start with the character attacks and all that stuff, block. I'm telling you right now, that's what's going to happen. Anyways, rant over. You could go ahead and watch that other video at the end of this video. I put so much work into that video. It's got all of the photos and video samples and all that stuff, and I kept it a buck throughout that whole video. So watch that video right after this video, and if you enjoyed this video and my content in general, take a moment to subscribe, and I'll truly appreciate y'all. I don't mean to come off as like arrogant or mad or upset, but I'm truly right now just kind of sick of all the BS going on. Most of y'all know I'm a kind, warm-hearted, you know, very easy to be around person, but this stuff is starting to piss me off. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. But anyways, I'll catch y'all later. Tyson Terry Warfield, piece of chicken grease. I'm out. Peace.